Ihsahn's EREMITA. I thought about standing up for this review, but I decided against it once I heard the record because I knew I would just be sitting right back down. I'm going to explain as to why that is, but shortly, however. First, I have to say that June has been quite the fucking month. Not only for music, but for fucking metal music. Really, really strong month, really great releases. This is another one that is going to stand out to a lot of people, and here's the funny thing about it. This month isn't even over yet. There's still 11 more days. There's still a whole nother release week next week, full of albums for us to talk about. Now, what makes EREMITA a different album as opposed to the past couple of Ihsahn releases? And what makes it to the point where instead of standing up, I am instead seated, as I traditionally am? Well, the reason why that is because I was absolutely floored by this record. It's one thing that I would start talking about it and probably have gone into some sort of huge-ass conniption fit and would have ended up passing out. This is a fantastic release, and I'm going to get that out of the way right away. That way you know how this is kind of going to go, the tone of this review is going to go. And instead I'm going to focus on the different elements of this album that make it that great. This is an album that Ihsahn carefully crafted. Now, he has been able to release a record about once every 2 years now, ever since he's gone solo. And this is an album where he has sculpted out some fantastic melodies, as always. He's also brought back in the saxophone, the use of the horn instruments. He's brought back in guest vocalists. He's also brought in Jeff Loomis as a guest shredder. All of these things put together already sound like a fantastic idea. But then you add in the minute little details. Then you add in the little things that you hear whenever you listen to the music, the subtleties. The way in which an album feels whenever you listen to it. The fact that it feels extremely layered. The fact that the density of the album is extremely thick. It's something where there is a lot going on, but there's a lot of difference going on. This is not something that is one-dimensional. This is not something that's unilateral. This is instead something where the album itself is forging different pathways and always, always, always meeting at the middle at one point. But getting there is always somewhat of a, well, strange idea. Kind of that old Western adage, you take the high road and I'll take the low road. Also about this album, you're going to notice some things that perhaps are not as commonplace in the previous 3 Ihsahn releases. For one, the choruses seem a lot bigger, and by bigger I mean that they are a little bit more, they're cleaner, and they also feel like they have a little bit more power behind them. Whereas before, this was something that happened kind of few and far between. It happens a lot more on this album. It's something that is almost a commonplace theme throughout it as well. Now, some people may listen to this and think of it as almost a going soft type thing. Either that or he's depending too highly on the latent beauty of the clean vocals whenever he should just be focusing on his screeches, his screams, his just downright damning cries that he is able to exude, and believe me, that happens on other tracks of this album. The Grave is a song that really boisters that and really shows that to the most fitting of T's. The reason for that is because he sounds just downright in anguish. He sounds absolutely ravaged. He's giving every ounce of shredded energy that he has in his larynx and in his body to produce these vocals that are just downright amazing. I have no other words to really describe it. I have no other synonyms that I could potentially use without botching it terribly. And this is something that happens throughout the entire record. Not those damning cries, but the vocals, of course, being a principal plus. There are times on this record where I almost feel like I took a Wayback Machine to the 1990s and early 2000s and was listening to an old Emperor record. And that's a good thing for me because I loved Emperor. I was a very big fan of Emperor and their material, especially the work that Ihsahn was a part of. So it just was an awesome throwback for me to hear that once again on a solo record of his caliber. To hear that amid the progressive melodies that are going along, to hear that amid the sounds of saxophones, and just to hear that once again just really made me wish and long for not only an Emperor reunion, but for a new Emperor disc. However, I will take this album 100%. This is an album that is able to please me on multiple different levels. The first half of this album is absolutely spellbinding, and the second half is able to do so with a little bit more of a mood and a little bit more of an experimentation that is somewhat present on the first half of the album. However, it is a little bit more omnipresent on the second half of the record, and this is where the album can sometimes maybe turn some people off. The experimentation on this record is in the form of some long free-form playing mixed with some vocals or with some other atmosphere in the background. And that's something that may turn some people off, may make people kind of shake their head a little bit, or think twice giving this an exceptional score or something like that. However, I think this was something that for the construction of the song, it was just absolutely fitting. You can't have absolute chaos in a song like this for 8 minutes in length. Instead, they opt to do something a little bit different. Instead, he opts to add a little bit more of an atmosphere to it. He decides to craft a little bit more of a mood to go along with the anguish that a song like The Grave is able to really possess. And then there's a special edition track which is called Recollection, which really seemed to me like it was a fitting duet to have maybe with Mikkel from Opeth, but of course that didn't happen. But it's one of those songs that whenever I listen to it, I can just imagine both of their vocals kind of cascading over one another and then harmonizing beautifully in the middle. So, I mean, maybe that was an opportunity that just didn't come to be, or maybe that was never the intention. Whatever the case, it's still a solid bonus track and definitely worth maybe shelling out an extra $1 or $2 for the deluxe edition. Not to mention, it always comes with nice little freebies and maybe even a DVD. I'm not sure, I haven't looked at the package yet. Overall, I have to say this, ladies and gentlemen, Creator may have some competition. Creator was the first 10 out of 10 in about 2 years, and I'm going to tell you that Ihsahn with this album came just about as close as you can get without actually getting a 10. So if you really want to, be numerical about it, it's almost like a 9.95. And the thing about it is that that's after just a handful of listens. This is something that could change, which means that Creator, who had a safe lead at the beginning of June, by the end of June, it may not be so safe. By the end of June, we may have a little bit more doubt as to who's going to attain the top spot in the top 25 in 2012. And it's almost fitting that this has to happen, because there was somebody who prophesied that there was a potential for this to happen. And, well, it took a special breed of album. I never had to deal with competition with a 10 out of 10 before. But I guess there's only one way to beat a 10 out of 10, and that's to also be just about as close as a 10 out of 10 can be, without being a 10 out of 10. And then maybe, just maybe, outshining it in the months that follow. I highly recommend that you pick up this album. I highly recommend that you pick up this discography. This is a gentleman, this is a project that is well worth your while. Mainly because it is something that is just undeniably unique. It may sound sometimes like it is a simulacrum from other bands or other projects that are on the metal palette or in the metal universe. But there's a stamp about this that just feels absolutely genuine, not to mention absolutely 100% unique. And I will always enjoy that about this man's work. I will always enjoy that about Ihsahn. I will always enjoy that about EREMITA. And I will talk to you guys the next time. Thank you very much for watching.